Hello everybody, welcome to today's show, guys. We got an amazing show for y'all today. Got some good news. I have breaking news from JD Vance, who is coming out telling about everything, the changes that are going to be for this 2024 election, talking about the election reform and keeping the election integrity in place. Guys, I love it. We want a free and fair election. He also calls out Harris's stance on the failures of the border with some new added details. We have breaking news over the new footage that has been released by whistleblowers over the Secret Service. Couldn't even get on the building. Guys, it was a joke, but you definitely want to see this because they're trying to cover it up. We have more Democrats that are coming out now and are actually upset with one another big time because a lot of them are saying that they kicked out Biden, treated him unfairly, and this should have never happened. Biden should still be in the race, which is crazy because you would think that, you know, they would all be aligned, but there's actually a lot of them that are coming out saying otherwise. We have updated information on the inflation, mortgage rates, insurance rates, where they stand, where they're going, what the Biden administration has done to actually make this all happen. But we want to give you all those updates today, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. We love you, appreciate you. If you don't mind, if you're not subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. We want to take care of you every day with the top news. Thank you to all of our members, to all those that give a super chat and a donation to the channel. We couldn't do this without you. We already got Deanna Scott in the chat. Everybody give her some love. Appreciate you so much. And guys, tell me where you're from. I love this community that we're building, but we got some good news for you, so let's go ahead and jump right into it.
Do you believe elections in Wisconsin are conducted fairly and securely? Obviously, your running mate had some issues with that in the last election.
Well, one of the things that Wisconsin did very poorly in the 2020 election is that it actually allowed a lot of big tech billionaires to spend a lot of money, I think, putting influence on local boards of election. And as I understand it, Wisconsin has actually stopped that. And kudos to Wisconsin for stopping that, because that's...
Yes, thank you, Jesus. Stop allowing these big, huge billionaires to influence our elections.
That's ridiculous. You cannot have private billionaires who own social media companies buying up public boards of elections, influencing public boards of elections. And again, as I understand it, that stopped. So I see a lot of reason to be optimistic about the election of Wisconsin. Yes. Of course, President Trump and I want there to be a free and fair election because we want every legal vote to count. That's the hallmark of America's constitutional republic, is that everybody's vote has to count. Right there. But for everybody's vote to count, everything has to be safe and secure. I feel a lot of confidence about Wisconsin, but certainly as a campaign, we're going to continue to monitor things. We're going to continue to make sure that people are doing things the right way. And I think the voters of Wisconsin should have some confidence that the Trump campaign is on top of this stuff and focused on this stuff. And we think we're going to have a great election in Wisconsin, and I think we're going to win.
Let's go. We've got, guys, the RNC has hired, I think it was like 10,000 people, something like that, to help monitor all the voting booths, to make sure that there's not going to be any cheating whatsoever. And I love it because Wisconsin made some big, huge changes to their election laws to make sure that these billionaires weren't just coming in, handing some people some cash, and then basically controlling the whole thing. I love it. He also had this to say. Check this out.
To the American people. And what should she answer for? And I think it's an important thing to point out here before I kick it over to you guys for some questions. Well, one thing she should answer for, we're in a great American manufacturing facility here, and I appreciate y'all showing up and standing behind me. But one thing we know is that you cannot manufacture in this country unless you have access to low-cost power.
Yes.
And we happen to be sitting on the Saudi Arabia of natural gas in this country. We happen to have unlimited oil and gas resources right here in the United States of America. And yet Kamala Harris would rather get energy from tin-pot dictators in Iran and Russia than from American citizens and American workers. And not only is that driving up the cost of power for hardworking American families, it's also making it harder and harder to manufacture right here in the United States of America.
Right.
And I'm one of these guys who believes that it's important that we make more things right here in the USA.
Made in America.
We ought to make more of our own pharmaceuticals. We ought to make more of our own manufactured goods. We ought to make more of our own food. We have to be self-sufficient as a people. And if we're not self-sufficient, then it's going to allow the communist Chinese to run all over us. And that's exactly what they've been doing under the Harris administration. The other thing that Kamala Harris ought to answer for is this terrible crisis at the American southern border. She has been the border czar for 3.5 years, and Americans have suffered because of it. I know this community's been affected by it. I know I've seen the consequences of it personally, but the fentanyl that the Mexican drug cartels are bringing into our country, it is killing Americans by the bushels, and it is
Guys, these are facts. Check this out. In the last 3.5 years, we've had more people die from drugs coming over the southern border with fentanyl than the total amount of Americans that died in World War II. Think about that.
Necessary. It is happening because of failed public policy. I talked to somebody just yesterday, actually, two kids, a 19-year-old boy and a 15-year-old girl. And their mom and dad had died of a fentanyl overdose just 5 years prior when they were 10 and 14 years old. These two kids were orphaned. And they're incredible kids. And I told them I was rooting for them. And I can't believe that our leadership has let what has happened to these children happen. It's not necessary. There's no American that wants the Mexican drug cartels to take advantage of our country and make billions of dollars selling drugs.
What's so sad, guys, is remember the two biggest things that the Biden administration did. They removed the Remain in Mexico policy day one, and day one they also stopped the Trump border wall from being built. Remember that.
Our communities, and these kids suffered because of it. You have a little girl who's bounced around 4 foster homes in just the past 4 years because of the poison that took her parents from her.
That's so messed up.
And you ask yourselves, why are we doing this? Why are we letting this stuff come into our country? I know very personally the pain of addiction. Some of you saw my RNC remarks, but my mom struggled with addiction for pretty much my entire life. And she's been clean and sober for nearly 10 years now. And that's an incredible blessing for my family, an incredible blessing for my kids to be able to get to know their grandmother. But I really believe that if the poison that Kamala Harris is letting come across the border in 2024 was coming across the border 15 years ago or 12 years ago, I would have never got that second chance with my mom. And we would have never had the opportunity to see her build a wonderful relationship with her 3 grandchildren.
And that's the problem that we're facing, guys. Did you hear that there's kids that are being orphaned because parents are getting overdosed on fentanyl? There's so much problems that, guys, they need to answer for it. Let me know what you think in the comments, but I feel like there's too much that has passed by that the Biden administration hasn't answered for, and there's too many people's lives that have been negatively affected because we couldn't take care of our own dang border. Guys, love y'all so much. Hey, I'm from Tennessee. I see all these amazing states, guys. We coming from all over the United States to come together, have a good time, be updated on the news. I love it. We're going to get some fireworks, guys. Don't forget to smash that like button because I'm going to take care of you with the news. I love you. Let's move on to this next segment. Oh, it's this one. Oh.
This is after.
This is after it happened, after the shooting.
Look at this. They don't know how many shooters are there. Some of them, understandably, still look like they're taking cover. Oh, look, we finally get up on the roof. Keep in mind, this is not the local law enforcement's fault. I can't say this enough. Keep watching. It is absolutely not. The Secret Service's job was to secure this site.
Yep.
And to make sure that that roof line was at a minimum accessible. So you could go and patrol it if you don't have a steady post there. They did nothing. Now they finally get to the guy. This is way after the damage has been done and a murder's happened. Folks, to describe this as inexcusable is probably the nicest thing I could say. Again, you have to investigate this, I believe, at this point.
Guys, I don't know about y'all, but I would love to see Dan Bongino run the Secret Service. If Trump wins, do y'all agree with me? Y'all think Dan Bongino should run the Secret Service? Because I think he'd do a dang good job.
As potential criminal negligence. I cannot describe to you in the hierarchy of Secret Service assignments that day how the site agent, whose only job was to secure that site. Not only missed it once, missed it twice, missed it on game day, missed the target, missed an access point to the target, and never even got to the target or facilitated communication to get to the target until after the target had been neutralized. I want to bring this up too. Notice how long it took him to get up on that roof.
Ooh.
Folks, thankfully, this is just a hypothetical, but it may not be in the future with continued failures like this.
That's true.
Just imagine for a moment, just one small moment in time, if that counter sniper team for the Secret Service had not neutralized that target with that shot, or say missed, the local team shot and missed, the Secret Service team one shot and they killed him. Can you imagine for a second if they hadn't, and this guy managed to move around and secrete himself again behind these buildings? He had enough ammunition to engage in what would have been a...
Oh, and remember, he also had explosives, detonators, things like that.
Mass murder. Can you imagine how bad this thing was, how bad it would have been if that counter sniper team wasn't forced to unscrew the big-time F-ups of this site agent?
Wow.
Just think about that for a second. This thing only ended because of a miracle shot by a counter sniper team that should have never, ever been put in that position, ever.
And that's not it, guys. We've got other details that are coming out because a lot of people are like, there's been also, we've learned of new attempts of trying to take out Trump. And there's a lot of people that are extremely concerned over the protection of Trump's life. Like, check this out. This is all this stuff that's coming out. I love it because we get to see it. I'm showing you it, but we're getting a full picture from different perspectives from a lot of people that are very educated in this sector. Check it out.
Joining us now, former Army sniper and member of House Armed Services, Congressman Mills. Congressman Mills served with the 82nd Airborne Division and Joint Special Ops Command. His team was hit by IEDs twice overseas. Congressman, thanks for joining us. Thanks for your service to America. When you heard that body cam footage, what was your reaction?
Well, look, when I heard the body cam footage, I was shocked to just listen to the fact that they had been telling the Secret Service for, as you talked about, 5 days that they should have been posting someone on there. This also goes ahead and reiterates and reinforces what local law enforcement has stated with regards to the Secret Service not showing up for the morning meeting the day of the rally, where you would have ironed out the details finally on what rooftops are we going to actually secure.
Guys, and remember, if you forgot, remember that the reason that they weren't posted on the rooftop, the reason that they weren't doing perimeter runs is because the people said it was too hot and they didn't want to be out there. Can you believe that?
What is our communication emergency channel? And if we don't have compatible comms, are we going to utilize a joint operations center where you have at least one member from each individual department, that being our local ESU teams, that being the Secret Service, and that being others who are coordinated with, so that you can call into that to then be able to disseminate the information that there is a shooter on the roof, get President Trump off the stage.
Yeah.
So this is a massive and colossal mistake. I'll correct one thing. Where I was an actual counter sniper at was when I was working with the State Department, working with their advanced teams. And I actually had talked to one of my team sergeants recently who confirmed that we've done about 1,000 of these different types of site lead advances and counterterrorism or counter sniper operations. And so this as a whole needs to be investigated further. But I fear that this task force that was set up by Speaker Johnson is moving at such a slow pace that even just the other day when we put out our 18-minute documentary, it was told to me that the task force hadn't even set up a conference call yet. And meanwhile, myself and Eli Crane, who were unfortunately left off this task force, was actually out there and had already sat where Thomas Crooks was to determine the silhouette size, as well as for what kind of shot the counter sniper teams would have had, and what we could have utilized the water tower for that would have been providing protection over the rally itself and the building where Thomas Crooks got on.
Congressman, let's watch more of the body cam footage.
Is he hit?
Guys, I'm going to fast forward that just because I think some videos are being taken down because of that one piece. So I'm just going to fast forward just a little bit.
Holidays and the day before the shooting, 80% of his visits were spent on target rifle practice. How worried are you about President Trump's safety? Because there are threats against him. For example, a Pakistani national with ties to Iran was just arrested, charged with plotting to assassinate U.S. politicians, including President Trump. Iran reportedly has threatened the life of the former president and members of his cabinet.
Well, again, I'm extremely concerned, and that's why I've been kind of sounding the alarm on what the kind of mistake we have right here, not to mention the fact that senior members of President Trump's Secret Service team had been requesting additional assets, and we know that ever since the successful counterterrorism strike that eliminated Qasem Soleimani, who is a Iranian spy master in charge of the Quds Force, as well as for Abu Mahdi al-Muhandis, who's in charge of, was in charge of the largest Iraq Shia militia group, that this was going to be a threat against the president's life. You also have, Liz, which we're not talking about, the fact that if President Trump comes back into office, he's going to secure our borders, which means that that's going to cut the revenue of these cartels who are sending people over in the millions, and not to mention the hundreds who have crossed on the known terrorist watch list. So President Trump is definitely at risk. And when we're not having the thing of meritocracy over DEI, which I think is part of the problem here, you increase the likelihood of some type of incident occurring or an event such as what took place on July 13th.
Congressman Mills, thank you for your analysis.
The worst part about that, guys, is the person, the site agent who was in charge of making sure that Trump was supposed to be protected. They still haven't been fired. They still haven't, nothing's happened to them. They're still on the job. How messed up is that? And it's like, when you think about it, a lot of these people ain't happy that Trump could potentially win. Why? Because he 100% does what he says he's going to do, and he makes things happen. And they don't like that. But on the other side, guys, we actually got where a lot of the Democrats are starting to turn on each other, and a lot of them are coming out and saying that they did Joe Biden wrong. Let me know in your thoughts. Should Joe Biden still be running for president? Because everybody knows that this dude was forced out. He did not want to leave. Listen to what he has to say. And a lot of other Democrats that aren't a part of like the clique, the in crowd, are saying that the leaders did Joe Biden wrong. Let me know your thoughts in the comments.
Transition president. I can't even say how old I am. It's hard for me to get out of my mouth. Although it's a great honor being president, I think I have an obligation to the country to do the most important thing to do, and that is we must defeat Trump.
President Biden finally opening up about his decision, was it his decision, to drop out of the 2024 race. Meanwhile, a former advisor with his administration is blaming top Democrats and the media donors for turning their backs on her old boss. Listen.
If you go back and you look at the polls, what you will see is you didn't see much movement whatsoever coming out of the debate because it was a fairly, the structure of this campaign had been fairly static for a long time, and the debate didn't change that. What did change it was 24 days of unremitting, negative, horrible attacks on Joe Biden.
Hey guys, y'all remember, as soon as the debate was over, it was like the wolves were coming in, guys. It was insane to see and hear the things that they were saying about Biden. And the whole time everybody was thinking, where y'all been this entire time?
Now with more is Fox and Friends co-host and host of One Nation, Brian Kilmeade. So great to have you on the show, Brian. So what happened after the debate that was fascinating to me is that George Clooney, who's really tight with Barack Obama, wrote an op-ed saying, hey, maybe Joe Biden should step down. And I think that was a signal to the media that they now could be unleashed. They had permission to go after Joe Biden for the final takedown in a coordinated takedown.
You know, Rachel, things have happened so quickly and everyone's focusing on the new opponent for President Trump. We have not looked back yet. And I think it's fascinating to watch Democrats coming on Democrats. Because
a lot of people, y'all been telling me in the chat, y'all are like, hey, what about Hunter Biden? What about that whole mess up? You don't hear about none of that.
Republicans and Democrats going at each other, and Anita Dunn, whose idea it was to go get that debate done in June because they were more concerned than they were letting on about how they were trailing Trump. They wanted to get back in control. They realized, in my view, that those court cases were not doing nothing but making him more popular, more sympathetic. So they said, let's get this thing done in June. She was asked, do you regret doing that? Was that a part of a conspiracy to expose Joe so he gets out quickly? And she basically said, there's experts, no way. Joe Biden has a history of stepping up in big moments. And they said, like the State of the Union, the comeback was, yeah, that was on the prompter, he says, but his ad libs were even stronger. And then once I thought this was so telling in the Politico interview. When asked, everyone says Joe Biden is still very angry at Pelosi, Obama, and Schumer to a lesser extent. You know what her answer is? But he's 1,000% all in for Kamala Harris, which means he is furious.
Right.
And what does that say about your character? When you're down, I'm going to kick you, I'm going to stab you in the back, flip you over, stab you in the front, and then I'm going to humiliate you, tell the donors to stay out, and give you 24 hours to decide to quit, but you really had no choice. And they say that Harris was not maneuvering behind the scenes. I have not heard that she was, but it amazes me personally that she could get this campaign going, these stops organized, everything done so quickly. I think at some level a story's going to be told about she was getting all her ducks in a row to be able to launch like this.
Yeah, guys, because think about it like this. Remember, whenever you think about the Secret Service, everything that they do is planned weeks and sometimes even months in advance for the protection of, Donald Trump or, Biden or Harris or whatnot. So for her to have all these stops in place, be doing all these campaign events, it's because they planned it 3-4 weeks ago. Well, it's only been 19 days. It's not even been 3 weeks. So they're saying that all this was coordinated before she even became the nominee, that Nancy Pelosi, Obama, Chuck Schumer were already planning this behind Joe Biden's back. Let me know your thoughts.
Yeah, there's a lot of intrigue, and it's seeping out. It's been very interesting to watch. Meanwhile, Kamala Harris has chosen Tim Walz from Pete Hegseth's home state of Minnesota as her running mate, and they're trying to present him as, the shop teacher at your local high school, as the coach. But there's a lot more to this guy. It just doesn't ring true. So you have a new special on Fox Nation called Who is Tim Walz? Tell us about it.
Well, wherever you go, Rachel, people, I'm amazed how well-read and how much the average person who does other things for a living knows about what's going on. So quickly, I think this special really goes out of its way to give you a competency on who he is, what he became from a so-called moderate in the House to a real left-wing governor.
Yep.
I don't know if he's been fully vetted. I'm not saying he's a bad guy. I'm saying he's a left-wing guy. And what Peggy Noonan said yesterday, I thought was written.
Look, you're left-wing whenever, for fourth graders, they have them saying it, putting tampons in the fourth grade boys' restrooms for all boys. Like, you're left-wing whenever you're giving illegal immigrants driver's licenses. You're left wing when you're saying, hey, forget the border. Let's just go ahead and I'm going to put a ladder over the wall so I can let people in. That's left wing. It is what it is. But this is what I've got this next video for you because I love it. I feel like people, this is what Trump said. Trump said people are voting with their stomachs. When you see the data, the facts, this is where people really need to understand what's actually going on and then vote accordingly. Check this out.
State of the economy under the Biden-Harris administration.
People are voting with their stomachs, meaning they're going to the grocery store. They're paying 50, 60, 70% more for food than they did just a couple of years ago.
Yep.
It's true. So let's take a look back at what Harris has said about the economy while she's been in office.
The cost of groceries has gone up. The cost of gas has gone up. It's one of the highest priorities, actually, for the president and for me. Fighting inflation is one of our administration's.
Guys, I don't know if you caught that, but that video that she just said was from 2021, okay?
Top economic priority.
For many Americans, prices are still too high. And we still have work to do to address that.
It's a term we're very proud of, I must tell you. Because Bidenomics is working. It's working.
Prices for everyday things like groceries are still too high. When I am president, it will be my day one priority to fight to bring down prices.
Bidenomics is working.
How could you say that 3 years ago that you're going to focus and work on prices, and then you say when you're president you're going to work on prices, but you ain't done a dang thing and things just got more expensive? Let me know what y'all think in the chat, in the comments, guys.
Help us break down her record. That's Kamala. This is co-host of the Big Money Show on Fox Business, Taylor Briggs. Hey, Taylor.
Great to
Good to see you.
be here.
Absolutely. So she at least acknowledges that inflation is a real thing, which is something you can't avoid because, as this first wall is going to show you, it's hit everybody so far, over 20% since 2021.
Ooh.
So here's my thing. Wages, as we've talked about on this program, in that period of time are only up about 15% relative to what I call the common man inflation, what every one of us is feeling. Gas, groceries, insurance, taxes, things like that. And so that's why when we talk about inflation being up 21%, it's that our wages aren't keeping up with that. And so we feel poor. My frustration with all of this is she has had 365 times 3.5 years of day ones to show us economic policy. So it can't be a priority on day one when it should be a priority right now. Should have been a priority the last 3.5 years. So I would argue, frankly, we do have her economic record. We've had 3.5 years of this economic record, and really it's been inflation.
People have felt the same thing. So you've got grocery tracks with what we saw in inflation. And then here's a big one, Taylor, as we move along. Credit cards. So if you don't, if your income is not keeping up with the cost of living, you got to find it somewhere else. And Americans, this is the highest balance we've ever had.
And what really worries me about this is when people are spending some of the necessities on credit cards if they can't afford to pay it on cash. And that's when you get into that loop. And of course, right now we've all talked about how high interest rates are. The fact that now your credit card payment interest rate is what, maybe 22% on sort of an annualized basis. So you get into the situation when most people are just trying to pay off the interest. They're not even now able to dip into the principal to pay off of that credit card.
I recently made the mistake of looking at the interest rate on a couple of my credit cards.
Was it?
It's obscene.
Yeah.
It's obscene.
And everyone is feeling that.
Everyone is. So how do we get here? Let's go to the things that are a part of the policies the Biden administration pursued.
Right here, guys.
You've got the American Rescue Plan, $2 trillion in money printing and spending money. They call it the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act. You got a couple of Republicans, ultimately a Green New Deal, and then an Inflation Reduction Act, which wasn't about inflation at all. It was more spending. So how do you defend this record of spending?
I don't think you do. Maybe you could argue that one, maybe the 1.9 trillion, maybe.
Look, out of that 1.9 trillion, we were just coming out of the pandemic. They were giving stimulus checks. But there was also a lot of fat in there that shouldn't have been in there. And what also made me super upset was they said, we want to help the American people out. Well, dang it, just pass a bill that just gives them some stimulus checks and nothing else. Why do you got to throw in another $1 trillion? Because that 1.9 trillion wasn't all just stimulus checks. All of it, I think, like 300 billion of it was stimulus checks. The rest of it was just extra crap that they wanted to pass so that they could keep funding things that they're getting lobbyist money for to pay for. All this money didn't have to be spent, guys. No stimulus checks came out of the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act or the Inflation Reduction Act, only out of the American Rescue Act or Rescue Plan, and it was only like 300 billion. So they literally lied to the people to try to get this passed, to try to make themselves look good.
Coming out of COVID, we were still feeling the effects of it. But remember, we're over a year now past COVID. And these two, I can't definitely justify any of this. I think the irony of all of this is not inflation reduction. It was inflation increasing because we just talked about debt. Talk about our country's debt, $35 trillion. These are T's. This is not billion or million, $1 trillion of debt. All of this fueling that. I need to hear from candidates, definitely the left too, how they plan on slowing down some of the spending.
Well, I remember when the debate was going on about the Inflation Reduction Act. And they acknowledged it really has nothing to do with inflation. It's just inflation was the cause du jour of the moment. And they realized we got to have something out there to talk about inflation. So they did a big spending bill, threw all the gunk in there and called it about reducing inflation.
Guys, I think that they should, like, if there should be any impeachable offense, is them calling this the Inflation Reduction Act. And it did not do that. It had nothing to do with inflation. It had everything to do with just giving people money to go do things that had nothing to do with reducing inflation.
When, as you point out, it actually had the opposite impact.
We're all in debt. We're running massive wartime deficits when we're not in war. Eventually the buck has to stop. We just don't know when.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing, guys. We just crossed the threshold over $35 trillion in debt. There's no sign of it stopping down. Now, what I do like that Trump is coming out and saying, like, hey, look, we need to cut spending. We need to cut taxes on Social Security, cut taxes on tips. We need to boom this economy and allow the economy to help us get out of this hole. Let me know what you think about that. But right now, a lot of people are saying, look, with Biden ran a teleprompter presidency. That's all it was him reading off the teleprompter. So whoever wrote his teleprompter was basically talking to the American people running it. Now they're saying it's the same thing with Kamala Harris, because in 20 days, she still has not taken an interview with the press. Check it out.
Anyway, here with reaction, the author of the big new best-selling book, Progressively Worse, Why Today's Democrats Ate Your Daddy's Donkeys, Fox News contributor, media analyst Joe Concha, along with Fox News contributor Charlie Hurt, former White House Chief of Staff Reince Priebus. All right, Joe, congrats on the books. We'll start with you tonight. I mean, there's a lot to unpack here. Donald Trump was there for an hour, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever it was today. No problem answering questions, question after question after question. J.D. Vance has been answering questions almost every day, and she goes into the witness protection program, and the media doesn't care. Just like they didn't care and they protected Joe in his basement all throughout the 2020 campaign.
By my count, Sean, Donald Trump took 42 questions during this press conference.
Wow.
That's exactly 42 more questions than Kamala Harris has taken in since Joe Biden was bullied out of running again 19 days ago. Here's a fun stat. Kamala Harris has not held a single solo press conference on domestic soil in 5+ years since she announced she was running for president back in 2019.
Wow.
She hasn't earned a single vote, despite when she ran in 2019, 2020. I guess she didn't get to 2020, and obviously now is a Democratic nominee in 2024. And by the way, Trump's strategy here was a masterstroke regarding the debates, because in the modern political era, it has been traditional that the general election candidates hold 3 presidential debates. So given the precedent, Kamala Harris must agree to the 3 debates Trump agreed to, but she won't. And now, as you reported earlier, she needs more than 3 weeks to prepare for a friendly interview on The View or MSNBC? That'll be like T-ball if you put a beach ball on the tee. So Kamala Harris, all sizzle, no steak, all foam, no beer. This is the teleprompter candidacy with Kamala and with Tim Walz for that matter. But the momentum is changing, by the way. The sugar high is ending. The jig is up. We already see 2 polls out today. Trump up by 5 and Rasmussen up a few points in a CNBC poll, despite Kamala Harris getting the most favorable coverage in the history of presidential candidates, Sean.
And I would believe that Wisconsin is a winnable state, Reince Priebus.
Yeah, absolutely. But look, you're all right. The strategy of Harris is to do nothing and let the media recreate this Barack Obama-style election. And you talked about diving and ducking, and it's like dodgeball. But, you can get pretty far in dodgeball as long as you don't get hit. So if you don't get hit, you can keep going. And that's why I think we got to go back to the basics, which is what brought Trump here in the first place before that first debate, which is what? It was inflation, it was the economy, it was the border. And Donald Trump said it so many times during the debate, it's gas, groceries, and the things that are affecting the family. So that record that you put on the screen in the monologue is the blueprint to winning here. And Walz is no different in Minnesota. Government-run healthcare, women in sports, giving away their entire surplus for 20 weeks off of work. I mean, Joe is right. This is so winnable. So that's the first thing. The second thing is it's going to come down to this boring thing called the ground game, which is thousands of people on the ground in Wisconsin attacking early vote, absentee ballot voting, one by one, 10 hours a day. The voting starts in mid-September. This thing is cooking up in a month and a week from now. So it's coming down to this razor-thin majority. We can win it, but it's coming down to the basics and the boring thing called the ground game.
Well, let me follow up, and then we'll go to Charlie. You're one of the most successful RNC chairs in history. You understand this game as well as anybody. Where do you see where the Republicans are now, the president's campaign is now? Compare it to 2020. Compare it to 2016. Have Republicans, do they have a strong enough ground game? Do they have enough attorneys at the ready? Are they really pushing early voting, voting by mail, legal ballot harvesting, and these issues?
Hey, I've done a lot of work over the last few days trying to get to some answers on this, and they are. They've got hundreds of people out there on the ground. They're going to employ thousands of people paid door to door.
Yep.
The sophistication is getting better and better, and the Trump campaign is so well funded. I mean, they can put $20 million on the ground in these battleground states and attack these votes. But look, early vote and absentee ballot voting is really, it's grown phenomenally over the last 4 to 8 years. So this is going to take a tripling down of this effort on the ground. I think that they're up to it. I think that they're ready for it, but it's going to come down to execution. We're going to find out in a month and a week whether it's working.
Charlie, let me ask you, I agree with Joe about the honeymoon, the sugar high. Those are terms I myself have used. However, they're going into their convention. Usually there's a convention bounce. After that, reality at some point is going to set in here.
Yep.
The one problem that I also see that Republicans have is that they have a corrupt media that is basically complicit and nothing but an extension of the Harris Walz campaign.
Yep.
So they've got to bypass that, and they've got to inform the American people how radical, extreme, and frankly dangerous these policies are. How do they do that?
Yeah, I don't even know if it's actually an extension of the Harris-Walz campaign, and rather it's just sort of the campaign, because I don't think that they're necessarily getting any direction from Harris-Walz there. I don't think that...
Guys, let me tell you this. I don't care who it is. I don't care if it was Josh Shapiro. I don't care if it was Pete Buttigieg. The Democrats, it's like they're a system that the top elites like Obama, Clinton's, Schumer, and Pelosi, they choose who it is, and then those people are just puppets. They don't have their own thoughts. Remember, Kamala Harris has literally flipped on everything that she stood for back in 2020. She said, we don't need fracking. We don't need gas vehicles. She said, we need to do away with like the border and stuff and all this. And now she's flipped and she's trying to be more in the center, not right or left. So she's just, to me, being told what she needs to say, how she needs to go. The teleprompter, she just says what's on the teleprompter. So to me, when I look at the Democratic Party, it's just an empty vessel. These people are just empty vessels for whatever, like, the top elites want them to say or want them to do. Let me know your thoughts in the comments.
I think they really are hunkered down. They don't want to explain anything. They have obviously Kamala Harris
I guarantee you there's
tried to change her
coordination.
positions.
100%.
There's got to be coordination. Has to be.
I'm sure there is to some degree, but the media is all too happy to carry whatever water they need to cover for Kamala Harris and to cover for Democrats. Part of that is because they so despise Donald Trump, because Donald Trump is such a threat to the system. But either way, she's going to play this entire thing where she hides out and she doesn't ever explain anything. The fact that she doesn't have any issues on her website is absolutely shocking, but she does think that she can get away with it. And that's why what I think is so important is to keep running all of the clips from the past of her cackling, of her talking about all of these crazy things, about how much more woke everybody needs to be and how we need to have reparations. Run all those things, because eventually at some point, if that's all the footage that we can run of her demonstrating her positions on these things, at some point she's going to get smoked out and she's going to have to answer some questions and she's going to have to debate.
Exactly.
And when that happens, I think that's going to be the end of her campaign. That's how bad she is.
I don't think, except for Brett and Martha, I don't think anybody in the media would actually ask the questions. But Joe, Concha, you know the media. This is your area of expertise. Do you believe that that this will get into the bloodstream of American culture? Will every American voter know the radical record of both of them before they vote? Early voting starts in 40 days.
Wow.
Wow, 40 days. I think, Sean, social media is an equalizer to a certain extent as far as YouTube and X and all these places where these clips are going viral.
YouTube,
as far
baby.
As Kamala Harris opposing domestic energy like fracking and fossil fuels, opposes ICE, border walls, remain in Mexico policy, supports sanctuary cities, supports sex changes for minors without parental permission, supports raising taxes, supports allowing violent felons to vote from jail, all while expanding the Supreme Court, ending the filibuster, and another, by the way, if this is a #1 issue as far as the economy is concerned, ask this question. What business experience does Kamala Harris and Tim Walz have exactly?
Yep.
Because the answer is zero. That's kind of a big deal, and that's something that Donald Trump should be hammering home. And oh, by the way, there is no teleprompter in the Situation Room. So picture Kamala Harris as Commander-in-Chief, Sean. Know this. If this Democratic ticket wins, you will not recognize this country. That I know.
100%, guys. I got this video for y'all. I saw this. Guys, look. I love America. We have the freedom of religion. I'm a Christian. Shout out to all my Christians. If you are of other faith, hey, we love you. We thank you for joining us on this stream. You know, we're all cool. This is America. We can worship whoever we want. But listen to this preacher, guys, because I'm telling you, this is what this is what's actually happened. But I love what they're saying, guys. I'm telling you, this is awesome. Check this out.
I can't vote for a party that is for all kind of sexual perversions. I can't do it. I can't vote for a party that's going to accept transgenders going into women's restrooms. I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't cut little girls' breasts off to make them boys. I can't go with a party that says you can be a boy today and a girl tomorrow. I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't support a party that wants to remove God from its party platform. You in trouble when the nation forgets God.
Ain't that the truth?
I'm gonna start speaking in tongues.
I can't follow a party that wants to sexualize our children in school, put drag queens in front of them, reading them little children's stories. I can't do it.
And what's messed up is whenever they have them dang stupid drag queens going out there, they're dressed like they're freaking strippers. They got little to no clothes on, twerking on and doing all these stupid provocative dances, and the idiot parents that are dumb enough to take their kids and let them see this, it's a disgrace, it is wrong, and it shouldn't be happening.
I can't support a party that wants to take the rights of parents away.
Ain't that
in California right now, parents are being arrested because they won't go along with the sexualization of their children.
You know, they passed that. Governor Gavin Newsom passed it. This is why Elon Musk, richest dude in America, took his companies out of California, because Gavin Newsom signed the bill that said that if your kid wants to transition or do whatever, that the school is not going to tell the parents, that they're going to handle it themselves. Tell me they're not trying to take away.
But there are many parents that are compromised. Y'all got to make a decision.
Ain't that the truth?
It's either God or the devil.
Little boy there.
And when you vote, you try to ignore it and say it ain't no big thing. But when you vote for people with these convictions, and they get in office and they start doing these things, you got a responsibility for it. If you've compromised in any way, you need to repent. Stand up on your feet and give.
I'm telling you guys, I love that. Like, because that is, to me, as about as real as you can get. And not only that, guys, what I love is that continuously we get to show you things that you normally don't get to see on the big media outlets. But right now, there's whistleblowers that are saying that there's government officials that are being surveillanced because of what they're saying. Check this out. This is nuts.
What did Tulsi Gabbard do to get added to the terror watch list? It came
You heard that. Terror watch list.
After she criticized the Biden administration right here on The Angle.
Our foreign policy decisions are being made by unelected people in the military-industrial complex who are profiting from us being in a constant state of war.
This is messed
and the
up.
national security state that has more power to undermine our freedoms and liberties when we are in a state of war. Kamala Harris does not have the strength to stand up to the military-industrial complex.
Okay, that's wild. Joining me now, Tulsi Gabbard, former U.S. Congresswoman, Fox News contributor. Tulsi, now, you serve this country in uniform, even getting deployed to Iraq. Thank you for going, unlike Tim Walz. And now you're being surveilled. I mean, it's a form of surveillance or hassling and intrusion upon your freedom to move by the government. What is this?
What
I mean,
the
I didn't
heck?
believe it, really, when I first heard about it. I said, oh, that can't be. But how does this make you feel?
Laura, this is a clear act of political retaliation. There's no other way to put it. You laid out the sequence of events the very next day after my conversation with you on the air, warning the American people about how dangerous a Kamala Harris presidency would be. I was placed on this domestic terror watch list, which is called...
Guys, can you hear this? Look, if you're enjoying this stream, please smash the thumbs up like button. I want to make sure I get you all this news. This is messed up because she disagrees with the administration. She's put on the domestic terror watch list. Are you freaking kidding me?
Skies list under the Department of Homeland Security. The clear pain and real visceral hurt that comes from this is, as you mentioned, like many Americans, I enlisted because of the terrorist attacks on 9/11 to go after the Islamist terrorists who attacked us on that day, and to now have my own government now turn around and put me on a domestic terror watch list. It hits to the core and is the ultimate sense of betrayal. But we look at why they are doing this.
Yeah.
It has a chilling effect. It sends a warning both to me and to anyone else who even thinks about daring to criticize our own government, which is a guaranteed protected right under the First Amendment.
Yeah.
That we will be subject to a violation of our Fourth Amendment right to privacy through this kind of surveillance. And that's the biggest stress that's been caused by this entire situation, Laura, is now forever. I will always be looking over my shoulder, wondering if and how our government in any of these different agencies is surveilling me, watching me. Are they reading my text messages? Are they listening to my phone calls?
Yeah, I was going to say yes, yes, and yes. That's what I would guess, at least. Now, in a letter from whistleblower attorney Tristan Levitt, he writes that the special mission coverage in Ms. Gabbard's case reportedly involves 2 explosive detection canine teams, 1 transportation security analyst in explosives, 1 plainclothes TSA supervisor, and 3 federal air marshals on every flight Ms. Gabbard boards.
What? Holy crap.
I mean, I'm not laughing, Tulsi, because this
Are
is
you even
literally
kidding me?
like the Soviet Union, China today, North Korea, any totalitarian regime. But Donald Trump's the totalitarian, right? He's the dictator in waiting. Okay.
Dang, that is messed
this
up,
is
guys.
just,
Did you see that? She's literally got like 10 officials that are following her around. Like, wow, I cannot believe that.
And this is what we know about, and we know about it because of these brave whistleblowers from the Air Marshal Service who are coming forward. What I'm questioning is, what are the things that are happening in our government that I don't know about? How long have they been surveilling me? This is just a recent occurrence.
Wow.
I would not be surprised to know that there are other government agencies who are also being weaponized against political opponents, those who dare to challenge this.
John Harvey said they give up that many seats for just her. That was a good joke.
Regime, the Biden-Harris administration. And that's really what it comes down to,
Man,
and why they have to be stopped.
They have to be
guaranteed
defunded.
the right
Defunded,
to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I cannot be free, and you pointed to this. Yes, exactly. I cannot be free so long as my government is breathing down my neck and watching my every move.
Well, we got to go, but we're going to be following this closely, demanding that this be completely withdrawn, and whoever is responsible for this decision, and there's one person who made the decision, should be fired immediately.
Immediately, guys. Guys, I appreciate you so much. If you're not subscribed, please hit that subscribe button, guys. Thank you so much for your support for the chat, for all the super chats and the donations to the channel. It's such a blessing to me and my family. And we just want to continue to serve you every day with the top news. Thank you for all the sharing, and we just want to make sure you're taken care of. We love and appreciate every single one of you. If you haven't clicked the thumbs up like button right there, please do it. We've had a great show today, guys. Let's go. Y'all have a great day, guys. I will see you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.